hold you to that because I got some questions for you about the old school stuff today, man. I tend to hog up all the time for the interview, man. So it'll probably be a lot of my voice, and my co-host will interject a little bit.
Okay. I just I've been thinking the whole day about the old stuff, and I forgot most of the dates and not the names. I still remember my own and Esa and Tero and Sami, but it's gonna be difficult. But let's try it.
Okay, well, we just want to know some of your recollections, man. We're not writing an encyclopedia here. It's fine. So
okay.
All right. I mean, we'll just keep going, man. This is pretty good.
Yeah.
And by the way, speaking of names, you say you remember the names. I'm from New York. I have trouble pronouncing some things from different countries. Is your name is Seppo Taatila?
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
it was quite good.
Okay, all right. We're off to a good start then. And another word that I may or may not pronounce correctly. Your home town, if it's a town or a county, is it Loima? Loima.
Yes, it is. Loima. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and for death metal fans who know their history, a lot of people know this for Demigod and Adramelech, this town.
Yes.
And that's part of the reason why I reached out to you is because you're featured very prominently. You're kind of like a big link between those two bands. Is that fair to say?
I think it's like we are just a small town and a small group of heavy metal fans here, and then we knew each other, and there were not too many musicians, not too many drummers or guitarists or bass player, so it just happened. I had friends with. I was friend with Esa and Tero and also Jarkko from Adramelech. So things just happened here.
Okay, and
there was nothing special about it.
yeah. It's never special when it's you and your buddies, man. But then people all around the world are interested in it, and so let's talk a little bit.
Yeah.
Even before the bands begin. Growing up in Loima, is it right that it's a fairly rural community with more of a farming and agricultural background?
It is, yes. And when we were kids, we were listening to Kiss, and we knew about Motorhead. We listened to Motorhead and stuff. And listening to that kind of music was against the agricultural nature of this town. And we wanted to be rebels like all the youth, So we wanted to look like different. And so there was like we were 10 or something when we started to listen Kiss and Motorhead. And Esa was older. I knew him, but I was admiring him, but I didn't dare to grow the long hair and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But it was like that, and there was Soviet Union and USA and Europe was somewhere there, and the bloody Swedes were. The fuckers were in the neighbor, so it was different kind of world. But we got LPs around from the world and 7 inches and cassettes. It was they were brought from, I think, mostly from via Sweden, and that was cool. We went to the record store, and LPs were really expensive. But when somebody bought a new one, we went to their house and we listened to, 24/7 about of that album. That was the life back then.
What were some of the maybe more unexpected albums or albums that you remember being more extreme that you guys got a hold of there when it was harder to come across this music?
Slayer, Tero and Esa found out Slayer quite early, and this is the part which is really hard for me. We should call Esa, and Esa knows everything. He remembers every album and every band. But Slayer was the first aggressive band, I think, because it was available here, and also some. I think Exodus was quite soon after. In the 80s, Metallica first albums.
Okay.
And it was stuff that you get easily from the record store.
Yeah, the bigger bands that we hear a lot about, regardless of where people grew up, Metallica, Iron Maiden, stuff like that.
Yes, Iron Maiden was one of those. And also the Esa and Tero, they went to this record store in Turku, which is the big town in the area. And the guy, Teje Kaldén, Comeback Records was the name of the store. He was keen on buying 7 inches around from Sweden. And the Swedes got those 7 inches and underground albums around the world, somewhere, I don't know where. But the very weird guy, he got us introduced to especially death metal and thrash metal. So and also Luksi and Jami Lahtinen. Luksi Lahtinen is from and Jami, they are 30 kilometers from here. And Luksi is a promoter from Sweden, from Finland, and they got us some tapes. So that's how it happened. It just happened.
Sounds like it was part of the bigger death metal explosion going on in the late 80s and early 90s. And you mentioned Comeback Records. I should say, I was fortunate to receive recently I pre-ordered the Rotting Ways to Misery, the history of Finnish death metal book that recently came out.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're quoted in there's a chapter about you and your friends in Demigod, and there's also some talk in there about Adramelech. So I did review it for the interview, and they talk extensively about Comeback Records as well in that book. So that's interesting to know.
Comeback Records was in a really old house downstairs, really dirty and old stylish LP store. And the guy was really, he was nice, but there was something, he was at that time. In my eyes, he was something abnormal. How can you get excited about that kind of music? And even though he was dressed up like a businessman or something, so I was like, "What the fuck who is this guy?" So he was a nice guy. He was a nice guy, and he was really interested in these bands, old thrash metal and death metal, and he was promoting heavily all the time.
All right, man.
So,
and for people who've read that, but the book's obviously highly recommended. And you mentioned before we should talk to Asa. We'd love to talk to a lot of your bandmates and peers and other people over the years. We just had a lot of guests on the show in the last few weeks from the old school Florida scene here in the United States. We kind of focus on regions at a time. So we will be reaching out to some of your peers, but we got you here. And before we get into, you talked a lot about the tape trading and getting into metal, but you yourself, Seppo, and maybe tell us, is music part of the curriculum in Finnish schools or in school where you went to? How do you end up learning music? Were you a musician before you discovered heavy metal?
It is, and in our hometown there's a special music school also. So everybody went there. I was there for not everybody, but if you are interested in the music or playing, you go there. And I was there like half a year, Playing trumpet or what is it? Trumpet? Is it you blow and there's a terrible noise or something?
That sounds about right. Trumpet,
know,
yeah. Trumpet, trombone.
My mother told me I came from there, and my mother told me this is hopeless, so leave it. And I went to work in a cultural. What is it in our towns? Department of the culture, and I was in some museum for the summer, and I got some money, and I bought my first drums. And I was all the summer I was thinking like, fuck that music, I want to play some heavy metal, and in a school we wanted to listen to heavy metal, and teachers didn't want. They were how do you say, they were old stylish and really conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to be against them and dress up like in a heavy metal shirts and stuff. So that's how we got into playing. And I think also Esa played in his. I think Esa started to play somewhere 86 or 7 or something, thrash metal band. They had a thrash metal band, what was the name? Nemesis was the band, and I went there a training spot and heard some song, and it was mind-blowing stuff. But the music was there. Also heavy metal music. We had bands like Tarot, whose bass player played in Nightwish until now, and Hanoi Rocks, rather rock band, but somehow they were inspired some bands here and bands like that. So heavy metal was there. And there was one magazine called Suosikki, which promoted heavy metal. Even Wasp was here. They didn't get permission to play in Helsinki, so they went 45 kilometers from Loimaa to the north to Huittinen. It was maybe 84 or something, and Esa went there. They didn't get permission anywhere else, and because of the stage presence, these chains, and you can see the testicles behind some leather. Maybe there was a cucumber or something, I don't know, and blood on the stage. But you could see that there was the only place, and Esa was he still is a rebel, so he went there with some friends, and I didn't dare at that time, but there was some rebellion, heavy rebellion here, heavy metal rebellion, or how do you say it?
Yeah, that's how you say it, man. Wow, so it's fair to say that Loimaa is a fairly rural, more conservative community.
Yeah.
How do you think that affected? Because Adramelech and Demigod both, they're not necessarily blood and guts bands. They're not overtly satanic bands. They deal a little bit more with esotericism and history and things like that. Is that fair to say that maybe that influenced it a little?
Yeah, that's true, because Esa hated black metal from the beginning. He, I don't know if you know Chaos Graphics, Turkka Rantanen.
I've heard of Chaos Graphics.
Yeah, Turkka was from Loimaa too, and Turkka was listening to Venom and black metal bands, Bathory. So Esa hated those bands, so he didn't want to mix up with satanic lyrics. So he went to this dark and, anxiety is popular. We all know anxiety from when we are 12 to 15 or 16. he was he did want to write about maybe about that one, the experience and darkness stuff. And I think Jarkko was interested in these mystic things. I think because I'm not sure, but he just found it via his big brother Turkka, who is the Chaos graphic guy. I think somewhere there. And Jarkko is a nice but weird guy, so I think those lyrics and that kind of character goes well with his bands. So I think that's the story. Also, Tero was good songwriter, a lyrics writer. So he was interested in dark things and mystic things, but didn't want to write about 666 kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Yeah, well, it always set the bands apart with a different atmosphere. And something I'd like to ask about, not necessarily related to metal, and I ask respectfully, and we understand if maybe this is something you don't want to talk about, but in my research, I did notice that the area of Loima is associated in some way with a legend of a Finnish fortune teller, or allegedly a witch, Prada Kitty.
It is. It is. I help you to pronounce it. It is Pratta-Kitti.
Pratta-Kitti.
Oh, nice one. You got it right away.
Okay, man, great.
Will's doing great tonight.
All right. So I asked, I didn't want to pry into this if it was something people take very seriously, but I don't know if maybe you could elaborate on that.
Pratta-Kitti was a witch who, was. We talked about it at school, for instance, and everybody know about Pratta-Kitti. If you go to the big church, it's like 6 kilometers from here, the Kanta-Loimaa church. You at 12 in the night, and you walk 12 times around the church. Pratta-Kitti will appear to you. So there was fairy tales. And they tried to drown her to the river of Loimaa, and they put some, how do you say it? It was like a wheel from concrete and stone, and they put it around her neck and tried to drown her into the river. So he came up and, what is the word? It was like a boat to her, and she sailed away with the concrete and stone wheel. So there was something magic going on with her all the time, and there was a mystic artist also around Loimaa. He has a statue park nearby, and there was a fairy tales all the time in our childhood, and we have been talking about this, and we think these fairy tales, Pratta-Kitti, and this artist with his weird paintings and statues was the influence that we didn't recognize at that time. You know what I mean? We didn't we didn't want to get the influence, but it was in our minds, because you hear the fairy tale from the first grade in school, and you know what I mean. I think there's fairy tales about there's stories about the war and the stories about Lapland and the witches here in Finland. So I think they have influence on us.
Wow.
Heavy influence.
Wow, I'm glad I asked about that. Thank you for sharing that. And I was wondering if maybe it played an influence in the band's, lyrically and the atmosphere in a way.
Atmosphere is here. The darkness. now I watch out of the window. The darkness is here, and the coldness, and we got influenced about the nature of Finland and Loimaa and the north. And a good question, really good question. I always thought the old days were the good days, but nowadays you get information, you can ask really good questions, and you did good research work. We have been talking about these things with. I don't see Esa that much. He's living at 2 kilometers away from me, but we see in a sports hall. He's in a track and field coach, and I used to be a basketball coach. But once a year or once in 2 years, we chat about death metal and death metal scene in Loimaa and Finland, and what happened and why did things happen that way that they happen.
Yeah,
we are starting to get old.
Wow. All right, man. Well, again, glad I asked. And on that note, we talk about what happened in Loimaa, the death metal scene. You mentioned Jarkko and Turkka. I hope I get their last name correct. Rantanen?
Yeah,
Rantanen. Two brothers that are infamous to death metal fans, I think, who are aware of the Finnish death metal scene. Jarkko kind of seen as the main man behind Adramelech, keeping it going all those years, and Turkka being known as a artist whose work has graced not only a lot of the classic Finnish albums, but he's branched out to other bands. He's still, every once in a while, you still see an album pop up, the last year or two with his work on it from bands.
Yeah.
Did you grow up with those brothers?
I was in preschool with Jarkko, but we didn't know that much. I have a picture of him in the same school picture with him, but we knew each other. But the blast was in maybe in the 6th grade when Jarkko and Turkka went to see. How do you pronounce Dio? Dio.
You did.
Ronnie James Dio.
Yeah.
So in Helsinki Ice Hall, and the principal asked Jarkko to his office and told him, this kind of stuff, will somehow ruin your life, and you are not allowed to be the next day off from school, and the teacher will follow your presence in the school the next day, and you have to blah, 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 blah. And Jarkko came to us and told him, fuck this guy. Jarkko is really, really, really shy, but when he talked about this Dio concert, then I realized this guy is the man. I want to hang out with this guy, and he was a hero. Real hero to see. Maybe it was, what year was Last in Line? Was it Last in Line tour? 80. It must have been somewhere 80, maybe 5, 84. I don't remember. Okay. But, from then I knew him really well. And from 7th to 9th grade, we were friends, and we started to hang out and started the bands. Well, actually, I started to play with Jarkko and Tuomas Alanitsila, who was part of Demigod in which album? I don't know. The album they made some years ago, and we started to play with them. Turkka was always around. He was really enjoying all kinds of metal, except Candlemas. He hated Candlemas and Wunderbaum. So once Esa locked up Turkka in his Corolla and played Candlemas and opened Wunderbaum packages. So it was a total, how do you say, torture for Turkka.
All right, man. Well, we'd love to talk to both of those guys eventually about their work. But talking about growing, you mentioned jamming with them. Something I got from that "Rotting Ways to Misery" book in the chapter about Demigod is it fair to say were you actually playing with Jarkko in Adramelech and then left to join Demigod very early on?
We didn't. We had a band, but it was not Adramelech. I think Jarkko. Okay. Jarkko wanted to play something. Jarkko was first keen on Swedish. We got demo tapes from Sweden, and he was keen on Swedish death metal. But then he wanted to play something of his own. And when we separated, Jarkko started to play first Adramelech with a little bit Swedish influence, but then he wanted to separate it totally and wanted to play his own style. But I did play first with Jarkko. I don't remember that every weekly changing names anymore, but there were bands.
Okay,
yes.
Well, no, I'm sorry to cut you off. I was just asking because we look back at the timeline, and both Demigod and Adramelech start their demo cycles in like 91, 92. There's several demos released. And we know that you joined Adramelech officially back around, 1995 for the fall?
Yeah, Jarkko didn't have too many guys in the band, and at that time I hung out with Jarkko a lot. So, and also Jani, who was the part of the band. Mm-hmm. And Demigod was, non-active. So we were talking with Jarkko one summer, and then we decided, what the heck, why shouldn't we play together? We recycle musicians here. You have to play in every band, maybe.
Yeah. Well, that's how it is where we're from, on Long Island, New York. If you know, like Pyrexia, Internal Bleeding, Suffocation, a lot of those bands are in similar circumstances through the years.
Yeah, I remember all of those bands really well.
They're all still going. Just it's like you said with the lineups. There's musicians that come and go for various reasons. Because that's why I wanted to get into that, because I guess the impression that some death metal fans have had over the years is that in your area, Luima, growing up, there was enough members for Demigod, and Demigod kind of got out there. You put out that split with Necropsy from Finland very early on, and then Slumber of Sullen Eyes is regarded as kind of a classic death metal release in 1992. Is it fair to say that Adramelech was in some ways overshadowed by Demigod, and maybe there wasn't enough musicians at that time for both bands to be full time?
It is fair to say, and I think Jarkko a little bit suffered from that. That he was he is a shy guy, and Esa is outspoken, Tero is outspoken. Esa and Tero were really active as it comes to tape trading, really active. They once got at that time post office was run by the government of Finland, and they followed every post. They got the call from Helsinki or Turku, and they asked, "Why are you getting so many letters?" And what is inside those letters? Last week you got 200 letters, And Jarkko was really shy guy. He was into tape trading, but not that much. He was not, the guy who spent time. He did spend time listening to the music and making music, but writing letters. So I think that's a really fair to say. he was a little bit shadowed with his bands. Well, was shadowed by Demigod, But Esa and Tero made really good work at the time of Unholy Domain. They had so many friends around the world, and we had so many bands to listen to. And when Esa and Tero, when they are keen on something, they put 110% of that interest. I think that's what happened. That's not romantic or most brutal, but that's the truth, I think.
Well, it sounds very reasonable. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And talking about Jarkko, again, we'd love to give all these people we're speaking of the opportunity to give their perspective on things on the show. That everyone has an invitation. But talking about Adramelech and Jarkko, it also seems like Jarkko had a very solid, singular vision. Like I said, he kind of kept that band going through the years with different lineups. Is it true that he actually at one point taught himself to play drums to keep that band going? Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's true. Jarkko is a long distance runner. That guy who is still going and pushing on after 30 miles or something. And he wanted this. Adramelech was like his own kid. He wanted to go on. He had a vision. He was always keen on. He wanted to train the practice drums. He bought electric drums because the neighbor complained about his playing drums, and he recorded once, I think, in some album, he recorded drums in his living room, electric drums. Jarkko, if you interview Jarkko, he will tell you the truth. But there was something going on in his room, and he made demos by himself, and then he asked people to come to listen, and he asked somebody to play guitar, the other guitar maybe, and somebody to play bass. So Jarkko was really, really enthusiastic, even though he was shy. But he was kind of a long distance runner who is making a lot of work but not shouting around like Esa and Tero. They were like Usain Bolt of death metal, always signing and trying, you know what I mean. So that's what happened. Yeah.
All right, I get it. Yeah, Jarkko made a little bit less noise, and it seems like it was something personal for him. I always remember reading years ago that he had taught himself to play drums, and we see that there's a time period between Spring of Recovery and the Fall EP in '95, which the Fall is the first time we see you on an Adramelech release. Now, you talked about, you were hanging out with Jarkko. You said, why not? Then in 1996, the next year, you have the Psychostasia album on Repulse Records. And then you switched to drums for the 7 EP within 2 years of that, right?
Yeah, that happened. Now that you talk about it, it really happened, but I don't remember why. I don't really remember why. Okay. There was something going on. There may have been some problems with Jarkko had some problems with his legs or hands because of the style he used in drumming. Mm-hmm. And it might have been that, but I don't remember. I don't remember why we changed. A mixture. We used to do these things, but I don't know why. But there might have been something about his health or something, health issues.
Yeah, well, we've spoken to several drummers in metal bands who've had issues with their joints and their limbs from playing extreme metal. It happens. And I just thought it's interesting to note that you played guitar on those two Adramelech releases and switched to drums. Now, when you were playing guitar, how much input did you have in the writing, or was it always Jarkko's project and he did everything?
We did some demos in one summer before the decision of me joining Adramelech. And I had some riffs, and we made even some Finnish folk music when we were drunk, but by ourselves, made by ourselves. But then I had some riffs, and I wanted to try some. And Jarkko was keen on some riffs, and he wanted to I let him change and arrange the songs, and he wanted something different, but not too different, but a little bit different in his music. So he accepted all my riffs and little changes somewhere there, and then those riffs went well in those songs. We did songs together, and we played guitar somewhere, maybe in his house, or I don't remember. And we made some songs in a training spot too, and it was fun time actually. Now that you mentioned about it, it was really fun and free time. We were working in a night post. We were delivering newspapers at night time. So we had a lot of free time, and it was really, really fun, really fun. And we were listening to death metal when we were driving with post car around the town and this area. It was fun time.
All right. Well, that's interesting that you talk about the writing process, because as a fan, as a listener, I've always preferred Psychostasia and Seven as my top Adramelech choices, not to put down any of the other albums. So I was curious about that writing process that went into it. And Adramelech has always had maybe a little bit more of a mysterious atmosphere than certain other bands. And maybe that's why, because it's the struggle of Jarkko over the years to keep the band going. We know that recently, we should say, Extreme Music released Recoveries of the Fallen CD, which collects the demos, the Spring of Recovery, and the Fall, all on a CD. Yeah. Just for listeners. Now, have you been in touch with Jarkko, throughout the process for these re-releases that come up or anything, or do you speak to him?
We have been in contact because I'm a godfather of his son, and he's a godfather of my son, and we are friends. And but I have to be honest, we don't talk about death metal. We have seen each other this autumn maybe twice, and we have a WhatsApp group with Jarkko and Jani from Adramelech. But we should talk with Jarkko and Jani. We had this idea of spending a night in a cottage, but because of the COVID-19, we canceled it. We were, we had this plan to talk about that times and listen to the music we made. And listen to the music we used to listen, but we have to change the schedule now because of this COVID-19. Nobody wants to pay off from work, and nobody wants to get sick. But we are in contact every week.
That's like the best possible answer you could have had. That's great. That's great to know. That's really endearing to know for fans of the group. And I just wanted to talk about, maybe if there was any possibility of a reunion, but it sounds like you guys are kind of just taking things casually.
Jarkko has been talking about reunion few times, but they have a family now, and kids are, I should know these things. Now that I have no longer wife to remind me, so I don't remember, but maybe 12, and they are. Jarkko is not. He told me he has not a possibility to make any reunions right now. But me, 15 and 20, so I'm here with my dog. I can't do a reunion with him, the dog, but I have a lot of time. But I play with. If you remember, Sami Vesanto, who actually was with me producing Shadow Mechanics.
Yes.
Sami Vesanto was the bass player. So we are rehearsing a new song, which is partly from the late 80s, early 90s, Demigod, for the re-release of Slumber of the Sullen Ice, Swart Records. So we are making one new song, and I've been talking about this reunion stuff with Sami. But we have come to the conclusion. Esa has a big family, 4 kids, and they are doing sports. I don't know where. I know Tero is in Turku or Raisio, but I don't know. Nobody wants to go. Nobody wants to rehearse or something. We are old guys. Esa told me there is no enough money. Some concert promoter from Denmark asked us to play in Denmark 2 or 3 years ago, and he gave me this sum of money, and you get this money. Let's say like, I don't remember, 5,000 euros. So I told Esa, and Esa told me to tell this guy he might consider if you put 1 0 at the end.
Yeah.
And he will be there if you put 2. So, what
Yeah.
Esa is always a blink in his eyes. He's kidding, but the truth is he's not going to play anymore or sing or crawl. But Jarkko is. I believe Jarkko could do that one when and Matias grow up. Jarkko could do it. Jarkko is that kind of guy. He buys drums, electric drums, and guitar and bass, and then he goes in a summer holiday in a cottage for a month, and then he makes album. Jarkko is that kind of guy. You never know. But not me, not Esa.
Yeah.
We don't.
Well, that's really interesting insight into the nature of both bands, and the differences between both bands. Because, like you said, it's from a small area where everybody had to be involved in both bands, and the bands had to share members. And death metal fans have been aware of that through the years. So this was really interesting insight into that. And I wanted to just ask you quickly. You've been very generous with your time. We appreciate it. About maybe your take. We know. I get, from reading that Rotting Ways to Misery book and just from like kind of dating things, I guess bands like Zizma, Convulse, and Disgrace maybe were some of like the first wave of Finnish death metal. I don't know if you'd see it that way. But like, what were death metal bands that you were aware of when you were very young, and Demigod and Adramelech were very young? That were like people talk about Demigod very high regards now, and I just want to know what your take is on some of those other Finnish bands that are held in high regard.
I think we should take all the bands high regard. But back then we did hang out with Disgrace and Seisma guys, and especially Disgrace guys. Jukka Taskinen was really funny guy and wanted to keep touch with us all the time. And Demigod, Antti Wuman, really funny guys and really weird music. And they spent some nights here in Loima when they went to the Peace-Burned studio in Viiala, Kusen polttama in Finnish, Aka musiikkireklaami. And some other bands, Amorphis guys, we did play shows together, and they still know us. I saw them in this big festival in Lieto, and Esa Holopainen was walking just by me, and he said, he was like signing these autographs, and then moi Seppo. I was like, oh, hello. It's kind of cool, I look really different now. I'm old, short-haired, middle-aged guy, but he recognized, we still keep in touch if we see each other. And Sentenced guys was really funny guys. We hang out together. And Imbel Nazarene, Mika Luttinen, and his brother, they were really, really funny guys, really good friends. And it was really fun time. We like kept together here. And also Swedish bands, we knew maybe Afflicted better because they were here playing 2 shows that we organized. And some other bands I don't remember came by boat from Sweden, but it happened that Esa didn't. The story behind I have to tell you story behind the style of Demigod after Unholy Domain was that Esa fed up with these magazines telling Unholy Domain is highly influenced by Swedish death metal bands. Mm-hmm. So Esa is really, when somebody's timbre is really, Esa is really from, I don't know the word, but Esa is, he gets confused about things that somebody is thinking of the different way he sees things. So story behind the style was, how do you say it, when he gets really angry about these things.
Around here they would say you have a short temper, and it sounds like something I'm guilty of myself.
Yes. Esa okay. Esa is really short temper when it comes to comparing Finnish death metal to Swedish. So Esa wanted to put a really big line between the first Demigod album and the Swedish death metal. Mm-hmm. So, and that's why we a little bit changed the style. And he asked me, "What are the best drumming styles in the world, Seppo? Don't mention any fucking Swedish." And I told him, immolation, incantation, invocator from Denmark, and sadus. How do you pronounce that band? Sadus.
Sadus? Yeah, yes, yeah.
I told him, these are the best ever drummers in the world. Esa told me, next time we practice, you play like these guys. And I told him, okay. So that's what happened. So, I don't remember the first your question. You have good questions. You really nice to tell you these stories, but maybe it's the middle age when you start to remember these things, and you want to remember these things.
Well,
So
no,
thank you.
this is exactly the type of stories that I'm looking for, and that I think that fans of your music would appreciate. Obviously, this "Rotting Ways to Misery" book just came out, and Finnish death metal is getting a little bit more recognition. I mean, me and my friend, I'm 38 years old. I started with the tape trading in the '90s, and I've always been into. I discovered Demigod and Adramelech and Demigod very early on, and kind of, I've always said that Finnish death metal is its own thing that deserves respect, and it kind of is getting there now where people are interested.
Thanks a lot. We used to be like in the here back north. We are not Sweden. We are blocked here. Not any bands. A few bands came. They came to Stockholm, but then they went somewhere in Europe. They didn't come here. We were here with our death metal scene and thrash metal scene. We have a good thrash metal from the 80s, but nobody recognized it because we didn't know how to promote it or something. And the Swedes and the music world didn't want us that much. But that's true. I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to get messages from Facebook or was it Messenger or email that people still love us and love our music and are interested in us and interested in our music and culture and what we did back then. It's I really appreciate it. But every time I tell the people that I'm really sorry, I'm not an active member anymore. I'm an old guy, an old guy, and I should get up and go to the work and try to manage the day at work. And I really appreciate all the contacts, but I'm not that active anymore. Now, when somebody asks in like you interview, when I can talk, I don't have to write. It's easier, really much easier. But I appreciate you are supporting Finnish death metal. I really appreciate it. I'm really glad for all the bands here.
100%, man. And you put in the work, so you can sit back now and talk. And again, it's like, well, it's easier for me too, because back in the '90s, I would be trying to do this as a zine, which I love a lot. I still have my box full of zines from back in the day. But these, doing these podcast interviews and this sort of thing, and there's the Growl documentary YouTube channel. There's Ken's Death Metal Crypt YouTube channel. It's just the technology has made it a lot easier, but we're all still underground death metal fans and supporters here. So quickly, I just wanted to ask, now, because that was great insight you just gave me. A lot of people, there's this, the mysterious Finnish death metal sound. Where does it come from? And you kind of gave us some insight that a little bit of it was this attitude of stop comparing us to Swedish death metal. We're our own entity, and it's great to hear that. It's interesting. One more thing that I want to ask you, because we want to be respectful of your time. We always close out by asking you to recommend some music for the listeners and for us, but just one band that has come up on the podcast, kind of a very obscure Finnish band. I just want to ask if you remember them, if you were aware of them, a band Paroxysm, Paroxysm.
Yeah. I have their demo. My cassettes are somewhere in storage. So I'm not sure if I can play them anymore. But they are there, and I know the band. And I was the only one who was, I think, at that time was a little bit interested in.
Interesting band.
Yeah. Yeah,
wow.
It is interesting. It is.
All right.
And yeah.
Well, just because I mentioned several years ago, I was able to download some of their demos on the internet, and it's disappeared. It's every once in a while it's on YouTube, but very obscure band, and I've brought it up on the podcast, and I just wanted to see if you, because some people might even be think I'm making it up or something like that, but they're real.
No.
Seppo remembers them too. He's got the demos in the summer cottage.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't mention in the podcast my memory problems.
I if I remember to, I hope I don't forget that. But so
Okay.
Seppo, again, we want to be respectful of your time, and we appreciate all the stories you've told us.
Thanks.
So just finishing up, can you recommend us for the listeners just any album? Any two albums, one older from back in the day and one something a little bit newer. They don't have to be metal, just anything that inspires you and that you enjoy. An old album and a new album.
Oh, the new one I know already. It's a new Finnish band, death metal band called Galvanizer.
Galvanizer.
I don't know. Do you know them?
I've heard the name. I got to sit down with the album. I've definitely seen that name in promotion.
You should listen to them. There is my friend Willie. I know all the guys, and they are really good band. Really good band. I have seen them live once, and I was really amazed. I was like, did I travel back in times? Somewhere in the 89 or 88 in Turku Auran Panimo, where all the bands where was Dismember and bands like that. What was this time travel, or what is this? They are really good, and they have their own. Even though they mix up different old styles, they still have their own style. So Galvanizer is the new band, and all the stuff they have. But an old album, maybe. Let me think. Phlegethon.
What is that?
Philigaton. Phlegethon.
Oh, an old
That's
school,
the one.
older Finnish band, right?
Yeah. This PH. Is it?
I think it's
PH.
PHLEGETHON.
Yeah. Yes, that one.
Yes,
I remember their album. The only band that never wanted to talk with us.
Huh.
They wanted to play, cards. This Uno.
Yeah.
Italian cards. They shut. They were staring at us, and they shut the door. I wanted to play Uno. There's a character. That's before the gig they played Uno for 2 hours or something. And they're so weird guys and weird music. Everybody should listen to the music of theirs.
Wow. Okay. We should have a special night where we play Uno and listen to Phlegethon. That would be great.
Yeah. You do that. Maybe Brett the Kitty will appear. I don't know.
Wow. All right.
But now it's nice guys. I remember. I think they are decent and nice guys. But the really weird stuff happened. Okay. Thanks.
All right. I love it. Seppo Taatila, thank you so much for your time and your stories, brother. We're
thanks.
As I told you, I'm a fan of your bands and the music you've been part of. We covered most of what I want to talk about, man. Maybe we could get in touch in the future, and I would like to get in touch with some of your peers and talk about this stuff as well. But for today, we thank you so much for your time, and your fans, I'm sure, appreciate this.
Thank you, all of you, all three guys there, and I'm really happy that you guys support Finnish death metal. Death metal all in all, but especially Finnish death metal. All the best to you guys.
All the best to you, brother, and be safe in that blizzard over there. All right.
I try to manage.
Okay, man. We'll be in touch in the next week or two as we put this episode out, man. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay, bye.